See Beneath Your Beautiful podcast is raw and intimate, sometimes funny, and always entertaining. With new episodes every Saturday, Hara explores our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I was going back over our history. I don't know if you remember how we know each other.
I saw your blog or something.
You did, and you were very kind. But the way I had your email address is I had applied for a job with you, and you offered me the job, and I turned it down because I was going to not succeed at the administrative duties. Do you remember that? As a graphic designer.
Yes. Are you still doing graphic design?
Oh, yeah. That's what pays the bills.
Good. And do you live in the Spokane Valley?
I live in Post Falls.
Okay.
I'm from Miami, and I've been here since I was 23.
You like it?
Yes, but I'm interviewing you today. Today I get to ask you the question.
Okay. All right.
Would you mind introducing yourself?
Well, my name is Richard Bliss Brooke, and I call myself an ontological coach. It's one of the things I do, and that's a fancy name for mood. Ontological means state of being. So when I coach people, I don't always know anything about their business or their project, but I do know something about states of being. And so I ask lots of questions and listen for the state of being, which might be scared or depressed or resentful or angry or envious or weak or hiding or any of those states. And so I coach people into a state of being where they can actually do the work that they need to do to be successful. And I do that through a lot of different ways, writing and speaking and coaching and online programs. And that's what I do. I live in Lanai, Hawaii.
You also own OxyFresh. Do you own any other companies?
Yes, I own a company called OxyFresh.com, which is a consumer products company based in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Dental care, pet care, and nutrition. I own with my wife a company called Smart Living, which is a high-level distributorship in Young Living essential oils, which is a network marketing company. And then I own my coaching and training and speaking and publishing business, which is called richardbrooke.com.
Awesome. You've come a long way. You have kind of a rags to riches story. What I really, really appreciate about you is your positive outlook and the way you look at life, and that you teach that it's all mindset, that you can have what you want, but you didn't start out that way.
No.
I would like to know, if you don't mind, how you started out and what changed for you.
Well, yeah, I am a good example of that. We can all change, and we can change dramatically, and we can change authentically. I was raised on a large cattle ranch in Central California. And I have an older sister, but she wasn't around much. I think she went to private school or something that was paid for by my grandfather or something like that. And I don't know, I guess I wasn't a good candidate for private school. So I stayed home on the ranch, and it was remote. So I didn't grow up really around a lot of other kids. And so I wasn't very socially adept. And I think that also impacted my self-esteem. And then, at some point we moved to the big city, and I integrated with, other kids and a lot of kids. And I just always sort of felt out of place and just not really connected the same way they were, because they all grew up with each other and they were pretty socially organized. And I did not do well in school, not because I was stupid. I just didn't like school. School never made any sense to me. Like, all right, memorize the answers to these tests, and then you get a good grade on the test. And that's education. And I don't know, at an early age, I had some sort of insight that education was different than that. So I was bored with school and bored with some of the subjects. So I barely got out of high school. And I also never had, my parents were divorced early on, and it was kind of messy like that. And so I never had really any good mentorship. I never had a conversation with my parents about, what do you want to do with your life or something like that. When you get a 1.9 GPA in high school and you barely get out of high school in Central California, which is an ag community, what you end up doing is going back to work on the farm or in some kind of ag of some kind. And so I ended up working at a chicken plant called Foster Farms, and I actually liked it. I actually planned on spending the rest of my career there, 40 years. And I would have spent the rest of my career there, I'm sure, had Foster Farms not changed their policy and where they say you can't advance any further in our company than I had already advanced without a 4-year college degree. And I wasn't going to get any college. I just didn't like school. And so all of a sudden I pivoted, and I didn't pivot intentionally. A friend of mine had been trying to get me to look at a business sales opportunity. And while I was working at the chicken plant, and I wasn't interested because I just didn't like sales and didn't know anything about business. And, it was all about people and talking to people. And I wasn't comfortable doing that. I was pretty comfortable cutting chickens for a living. So, all of a sudden I was looking, and I just happened to talk to that friend of mine after that policy came down. So I looked at what he was doing differently because now I needed to do something different. And it was a pretty weird thing he was showing me. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand it. But, one of the gifts I have, I guess, from being raised on a big ranch with lots of nature and going on, lots of animals, lots of plants. And if you spend a lot of time in nature, I think it might develop an innate sense of curiosity. So I was curious, and I just kept looking and studying and asking questions. And about 3 weeks later, it all kind of made sense to me. And so I got involved, and the business model was network marketing, multi-level marketing, direct selling. Some people think it's a pyramid scheme, whatever people think it is, it's like Amway. The question is like, how did I become an ontological coach? Well, in network marketing, you're selling a product, but you're also selling an opportunity. You're selling an income opportunity. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of the right attitude, a lot of perseverance, a lot of posture, a lot of self-esteem. Basically, it takes a lot of personal development, because what you're selling, for those in the audience that don't really understand what I'm talking about, it's just like Amway. Mm-hmm. You could probably go ask 100 people that hey, do you want to do something like Amway? And they're all going to say no. People have already decided they don't want anything to do with that. So if you're going to be successful in that business, you got to be pretty confident. You can't be talked out of what you're doing by everybody that doesn't want to do it. You might say, well, why would you do something like that? There are actually a percentage of people that do want to do it once they look into it a little bit. And it has an incomparable wealth building curve for investing hardly any money and not that much time. It's actually a really extraordinary income opportunity once you get past the stigma and you understand it. I just sort of fell into it. And in order to succeed at that business, survive and succeed, I had to really dive into personal development. I had to learn about me and my thoughts and my beliefs and my actions and my attitudes. And I had to learn about other people. And I've been doing it for 45 years, probably after about 10 years of working on myself. I got pretty good at listening to other people and coaching other people and moving people from a mood that does not support their goals to a mood that does support their goals. And that's how I became very successful in network marketing. And I just transferred that skill into the other businesses that I developed. That's the short version.
I used to think that I was responsible for my actions, but not my thoughts, until I realized that wasn't true, that I was responsible for my thoughts and I could change them. And that's what you promote. Is that right? Exactly.
Yeah. We are the only creature on the planet that has been given the gift of creative thought. If you look around the planet, Earth, and look at every other living thing, it's pretty much functioning the way it did 1,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago. Human beings are the only living thing that has created something beyond its initial existence. We're the only human being, only living thing on the planet that can decide what we think about. So if you're thinking thoughts that create a mood of just, let's just say, weakness or depression, well, you're not going to do your best work in that state. And so those thoughts that you have that lead to the mood of depression or weakness are made up thoughts, and we can change them. So if I'm talking to you, if I was coaching you right now and you said, I'm really depressed and I'm worried, and, what are you worried about? What are you depressed about? And then I would hear this story. There'd be a story there. And I just might ask you a question. Can you remember a time that you weren't worried? Or what if the thing that you're worried about turned out to not be anything, which, 99% of the things we worry about don't actually turn out the way we worry about them. What if that went away? What if that actually turned out the opposite? So I ask you a question and you're thinking of the answer. And as soon as you think of an answer that empowers you, that inspires you, it changes your whole mood, changes your body chemistry. And you can think of the answer because I asked the question. And I can think to ask the question because I'm a human being and I have that gift of creative thought. So we choose all of our thoughts, and most of us don't realize that. We haven't been trained in that. That would be a really good subject in high school as opposed to algebra or whatever else they were teaching.
Agreed.
Once you learn to be aware of what you're thinking and then learn how to think something different that's more in line with how you want to feel and what you want to accomplish, then you move forward powerfully in life.
I interviewed a 19-year-old who is not very hopeful. That was her words. I don't have a lot of hope. And I had no idea what to say to her. How do you help somebody who just has no hope?
The first thing you can do with anybody is just listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
So you ask them questions. What questions do you ask? Well, trust your intuition. The questions don't come from a book. If you're really interested in what's going on with somebody, just ask them what's going on and listen, and then take your cues for the next question based on what they say. Ask another question and listen. Ask another question and listen. Ask another question and listen. There's an immense healing process that comes when people are heard. And a big part of people being depressed and hopeless is they don't feel like they're heard. Their family doesn't hear them. Their government doesn't hear them. Their neighbors don't hear them. Their boss doesn't hear them. They post something on social media and no one likes it, right? So the world doesn't hear them. Just being heard can be highly therapeutic.
Right.
You don't need to actually offer advice. Just listen.
Right. That is so good. You've written some books, The 4-Year Career and Mach 2, right?
Yes.
Are these books only for people in multi-level marketing, or can they help anybody?
This is the 4-year career. It is about network marketing. So it's only for people that are interested in network marketing or are in network marketing. Mm-hmm. This book I wrote in 1995, and then I rewrote it 2 years ago. Mach 2 with You're on Fire, How to Master the Art of Self-Motivation and Stay on Fire for Life. That doesn't have anything to do with network marketing. It applies to everybody in all walks of life. And what it teaches you how to do is understand what you're thinking and why you're thinking it, learn how to change it, and then take that change and turn it into fuel that actually empowers you to do what you want to do in life, whether it's get fit or get a better relationship with your spouse, or get in a relationship if you're not in a relationship, or travel the world, or make more money, or be of more service, whatever you want to do.
So you went from working at Foster Farms, and I know your car was repossessed at one point, right? And you were living with your sister.
Yeah, I was sleeping on her couch and borrowing her car. She was a flight attendant. So I took her to the airport when she flew and dropped her off. And then I'd drive her car for 3 days trying to sell. And then I'd pick her back up when she came back in. And then the 4 days she had off, I just laid on the couch.
Well, you said you succeeded because there was an opportunity that took you out of Foster Farms. How did you get from that to the success you have now? How did you find what you were looking for?
I was very fortunate. The network marketing company I joined was all about personal growth. We had a product I still use today, 45 years later. And of course, they had a compensation plan so you can make money. But the culture of the company was really all about personal development. When the leadership of the company would talk to us as salespeople, they'd almost always talk to us about read this book, listen to this audio tape, sign up for this class. And, that was 45 years ago. So materials were limited. There weren't videos. There was really only cassette tapes, originally phonograph records, 33 1/3 records, and books, and only a few books. There was only 10 or 15 books on any kind of personal development subject 45 years ago. That was actually an advantage because being just a small number of books, we read them all, and we read them all multiple times. Today, there's so many books that people tend to just skim. They tend to read one book and then another book and another book and another book and another book, and they don't tend to internalize or master any of the material. They kind of have a casual relationship with it, where we had a deep relationship with it because we would read a book 8 or 10 times. And if we had an audio tape, that was precious. And so we would listen to it. One particular audio I listened to by a guy named Paul J. Meyer, who owned a company called Success Motivation Institute, which was a personal development company. I listened to that one audio tape thousands of times. It was 25 minutes. I'd listen to it 4 or 5 times a day. And it changed me. And then when I started making money, I started investing that money in coaches and retreats and seminars where I could go and immerse myself in a conversation that was personal to me. Audio tapes and books are a great way to start, but it's just information. Mm-hmm. You're learning information. It's good. It's valuable. It'll get you started. But if you want to really transform, you have to have somebody take you on personally, listen to you, ask you the right questions, and give you some direction where you can transform yourself. That happens at events, programs, retreats, or if you hire a personal coach. So over the next 20 years, somebody asked me to add it up once. I added it up. This is the number as of 15 years ago. So it's much bigger now, but I haven't kept track of it in the last 15 years. By the time I was, let's say, 50, I had invested $250,000 in my own personal development, my own transformation. And that wasn't in seminars about my business. That was seminars about me. Mm-hmm. And so you could equate that to what's like a really high-end college education, which I got over a 20-year period, actually a 30-year period. Unlike most high-end college educations today, that you don't get that big of a return on them. I got a huge return. I mean, I spent $250,000. I got a 100-fold return easily, maybe more.
I have and coaching and just somebody saying the right thing at the right time, and you can actually hear what they're saying. I had lent somebody money, and somebody told me that they never put a gun to my head, that I had given the money willingly. And the shock,
you did,
the shock that I did that and that I wasn't a victim totally changed my life, though, because I heard her and I could no longer be a victim. And since that time, I always seen myself as I've made choices. So That was great that I was called on my bullshit.
That's one of the great access points for transformation. Most of us spend our life, one of the states of being that we're in almost all the time is blame. Mm-hmm. We're blaming everyone. We're blaming the world. We're blaming the government. We're blaming our governor, our representatives, our senator, our mayor, our boss, our family. We're blaming everyone for our lot in life. But the one person that we rarely take on to have responsibility is us. One of the things I tell people that, they might be in a particular opportunity or a particular company or a particular profession, and they're whining about, oh, I can't, it's so hard. Nobody wants to, whatever. Like, they're in a state of blaming the world. And then out of that, they create a story that it can't be done. I can't succeed because they won't let me. And so I might ask them, is there anybody in your profession? Is there anybody in your company that's successful? And the answer is almost always, well, yes, that person over there, they're successful. Well, if somebody's successful in your profession, if somebody's successful in your state, in your city, in your company, then you can be successful. And the only reason you're not is you're not taking personal responsibility for your decisions, your actions. You're in the state of being, of blaming, which makes you very weak and enabled. So, coaching is, hey, let's move you beyond blame. Let's move you into personal responsibility, which is just what the retreat leader did with you. Mm-hmm. No one held a knife to your throat and made you loan that money.
So surprising.
You loaned it. They stiffed you. You can trash them all you want in your mind. It's not going to get your money back.
Mm-hmm. And it afforded me such a freedom when I just accepted it for what it was.
Yep. You made a mistake.
My whole life changed. Yeah, whatever, right? Go on.
Yep.
So beyond money, what do you consider success?
I don't consider success money, even though I enjoy money and I've strived to make money. Money is a tool that gives you choices. And I like having choices. I actually define success as progress. Mm. If you apply it to money, let's say somebody makes $50,000 a year, you want to know if you're successful or not around money. Like, if money is important to you, well, how would you feel if this year you made $55,000? If you've always made 50 and you made 55,000 this year and money's important to you, would you feel good about that? Now, you may want more, but just notice the feeling that comes with progress. It's really all human beings want relative to their goals, is they want to make progress. Because with progress, it feeds the belief that the end game, the big goal, the final goal, whatever it is eventually inevitable. It's eventually going to come to pass. And so that gives us peace and it gives us fulfillment. Even if the big goal never comes, as long as you and I are making progress, I find that most people are happy. Most people feel good about themselves. Most people feel in integrity, and they can be patient with the big end game. The challenge with the big end game is you're not as in control of that as you might think, but you are in control of progress, because progress is created by what you do today, mm-hmm. and what you do tomorrow and what you do every day, and who you're being and what you're thinking and the stories that you tell yourself. You're responsible for all of that. And so no matter what you and I are up to, I promise you, all of us can do a little bit more of whatever needs to be done every day. So progress is success. Mm-hmm. Integrity is success. And integrity is not ethics. Ethics, everybody has a different opinion about what ethics are, right? I said, but criminals have a code of ethics.
Oh, I see.
Integrity is authenticity. Whoever you say you are, whoever you are, to the degree that you be that person, that you walk your talk, that you're authentic, that you tell the truth, that you're congruent, That's integrity. That's authenticity. And I find that also gives me and most other people a strong feeling of success. Where we feel unsuccessful is when we're faking it, when we're trying to be somebody that other people want us to be. But the truth is, we really don't want to be that person. And to the degree we're trying to live up to other people's expectations or prove something to other people, that's not success. That's agony. There's a lot of friction there, a lot of stress there. People that live that kind of life get sick.
It's kind of ironic that you say that, because that was your goal of getting on Success Magazine, right? Was sort of to prove that you were a success.
Totally.
And so the irony is that you've finally learned that just be yourself. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Is that right? The
great, irony of that is, yes, I wanted to be on Success Magazine to prove to everybody back at the chicken plant that I made the right decision and I was successful. And so I bought a picture of me on Success Magazine 10 years earlier. And I used this technology to ingrain that expectation into my body and my psyche. And I know for a fact that's how I ended up on the cover of Success Magazine. They wrote an article about my profession and they chose me as the feature person out of probably 50 million people, many of whom were billionaires and way more successful than me. And they picked me. Why did they pick me? Because I'm the only one that had the cover of the magazine with my picture superimposed on it on my credenza for 10 years. And I did that. So I thought if I could get on the cover of Success Magazine, then all my friends back home and everybody that told me it wouldn't work, and, I'd show them. And then I would be, then they'd all want to get involved in what I was doing. And, I got on the cover of Success Magazine in March of 1992. And it was that issue, March of 1992, outsold every issue of Success Magazine in that magazine's 100-year history. In 1992, the magazine was already 100 years old. And it made absolutely no difference at all in my business. None whatsoever.
I love that story. I feel like my goal is to enjoy every day. And I want to do well and I want to live well. If I got on a magazine cover, my life wouldn't be any different. I would just be on a magazine cover and have an article about me. Yeah. I love that story. It's just about doing well every day, doing your best every day.
Yeah. If we'll just be in integrity and do a tiny bit more today than we did yesterday, like even 1%, right? If you improve 1%, that's 365% a year. You look at it that way, it shouldn't be hard to carve out a great life.
Yeah, definitely. It must be hard to be in your field because there's so many naysayers about network marketing. And I know you're promoting doing it with integrity and authenticity. What about you just makes you go with the punches and just look at it differently?
Well, it's perspective. All of us, maybe, a great example is politics. If you're a conservative, you tend to look at liberal policies with disgust and disdain. If you're a liberal, you tend to look at conservative policies with disgust and disdain. If you don't know anything about network marketing other than it's like Amway, you tend to look at it with disgust and disdain. I understand that. What's missing in our political environment today is the liberals have no empathy for conservatives. They don't really care why conservatives think the way they do. Conservatives have no empathy for liberals and don't care why they think the way they do. Empathy meaning not sympathy, but empathy, where I feel you, I get you, I see where you're coming from. And yet both sides are in this lifelong battle to convince the other side to join them. And if they don't, well, there's something wrong with them. They're somewhere between stupid and criminal. And both sides have that approach. And yet, the only way that a conservative might ever get a liberal to listen to them, really listen, is if the conservative would first really listen to the liberal. If you want to be understood, the route to being understood is not beating a drum or beating somebody over the head. It's seek first to understand. How I prosper in an environment where most people hold what I do with disdain and disgust is I understand clearly how and why they see it that way. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of thousands of people in the last 45 years. I listen to their stories. So when I get a chance to talk to somebody who says, oh, that's a horrible thing to do for a living, I don't argue with them. I ask them to tell me some stories. Like, how did you learn that? How did you see it that way? And why did you see it that way? And I don't listen to them to counter them. I listen to them to understand that point of view. And I have built-in empathy because when I first looked at network marketing, I thought it was stupid. I didn't understand it at all. Made no sense to me. It just looked bizarre. It looked like something from another planet. The math didn't make sense. The model didn't make any sense. Why would you buy products from your next door neighbor? Why don't you just buy them at a store? That whole thing. So I have empathy for people who see what I do as not desirable. I have respect for it. And I'm really not out to change their mind. What I've found is there are a certain percentage of people, might be a small percentage, but there's enough. There's 100 million people that are network marketers around the world, and about 500,000 people a week decide to build a second income with some network marketing company. So even though almost everybody doesn't like it, I'm not really looking to convince anybody. I'm just looking for the ones that are on the bubble, the ones that, they don't really like it, but maybe they're like me, right? Maybe the chicken plant in their life just created a policy that blocked them from going where they want to go. So maybe their options dried up. Maybe something happened, the game changed. Maybe their parents all of a sudden need financial support. Maybe their spouse needs to quit working and come home and take care of the kids. Maybe they need to quit commuting, right? People get in a place where the pain that they have or the passion they're looking to pursue is oftentimes more important to them than a bias they have about Amway. Part of my interview process is when I ask people, okay, well, what do you know about Amway? They don't know anything about Amway. They don't like it, but they don't know anything about it. And those people, right? Okay, some person 20 years ago was an idiot, but that doesn't have anything to do with the business model or company that I represent. And so I just listen and look for people who the opportunity might be more enticing to them than some half-baked 20-year-old bias. So I'm more sorting than selling.
Well, I love how you teach, not just for multi-level marketing, but I do appreciate your view on sales and how to just go through life with integrity, and that a no today doesn't necessarily mean a no forever. I like that as well.
Selling has kind of the same bad rap that Amway does. And it's because for maybe 100 years or more, what it has looked like is if I'm the salesperson, I'm telling you what you should do. You should buy this product, whatever I'm selling, you should do it. And you might say, well, I don't have the money. And so now my job is to convince you that you do have the money. And well, I don't like those ingredients. Let me show you why you should like those ingredients. It's all an argument. It's an arrogant argument. Because I start off telling you what you should do with your life and your money. And how is that any of my business? Then when you resist, I argue with you. And how I might sell you is I might be well trained to win the argument. And you've actually never made the argument before. It's your first time making your argument about why you don't want to buy those ingredients or that particular product. But I've been winning that argument for years because that's what I'm trained to do. So that's how salespeople historically have succeeded. But what they've left in their wake is a reputation where people don't like salespeople. The number one way people shop for cars prior to the online shopping phase of, say, in the last 10 years is they would get in their car and they'd go to car lots late at night and drive up and down the lot looking at cars. Why? So they didn't have to talk to a salesperson. So there is a different way to sell, which is you don't tell people anything. You just ask them questions and listen. And if there's a fit for your product, they're going to give you an opportunity, if you ask enough questions and listen, to tell them about your product. And if they don't want to buy your product, how about just making that okay? Since it's not any of your business what they should put in their body or what they should use in their life or how they should spend their money. I teach people a graceful way of selling where actually the people who say no to you could end up being your best prospect 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 from now because you didn't alienate them by being an ass.
That's sort of how I feel about our relationship, that I told you no about working for you, but you still are open to me. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That's very nice. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and sharing your wisdom. I really appreciate you and everything you do. And I'm so thankful that you're in my orbit.
Thank you, Hera. It's an honor to be on your podcast. And I
thanks.
wish you great success with it.